everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, then welcome to my channel. I know I've been a little MIA lately, but I'm very excited to go ahead and be back here with you guys. Life just gets a little bit too hectic for me, I think, and I think it's going to be a little beneficial now if I record and upload videos every other week instead of every week. So I'm going to be doing that from now on. If I can go ahead and add in another video in between, that'll be great. If not, such is life. But that's my structure now. So hopefully you are cool with it. Anywho, so I am going to go ahead and be talking about a true crime case today that I have been researching for past 2-3 weeks, and it's still mind-blowing to me. Like, there's just one thing after another, I've got to say. In this true crime case, it is going to involve SA, sexual assault, which is, what I'll be referring to, kidnapping, and death of teenage boys. Now, if this type of story is something that you do not think you can handle, totally understand. I just hope that you do like and subscribe and maybe watch future videos with me, because not every single video is going to include the subject matter that I talk about today. So, with all of that, let's get into the story. Today we are going to be talking about John Wayne Gacy, also known as Pogo the Clown, because he dressed up as clown. John Wayne Gacy was born March 17th, 1942 in Chicago, Illinois, and growing up he had a very loving mother. However, his father was very cruel and abusive, both verbally and physically, and back in these days, the moms never really stood up for their children, and the mom was just very passive and just kind of let things happen. And when you have that kind of life, I mean, you grow up abused, and sometimes when people grow up abused, they have terrible things happen. But here's a but. Just because you were abused does not mean that you should abuse others. Something that horrible happened to you, I will say that, but break the cycle. Get the help you need. This does not excuse the crimes that he does commit. And now I got most of my information from a Netflix documentary where John Wayne Gacy actually explained everything from all of the murders and all the crimes, and just, gave a view into what was going on in his life. It's a very interesting documentary, but it's hard to listen to. So when you go into it, just be prepared. It's very hard to listen to, but it's a wealth of information. The only thing with this documentary that I felt was a little hard is that it goes back and forth in time a little bit, which was kind of, hard to keep track of. But as the documentary continues, you begin to understand and see how the pieces come together. But I am going to try and do that as well, because I don't want to, mix you up with time frames. So we're going to do the best we can. Growing up, he actually got married to a woman named Marilyn, and they had 2 children. And he was just known as the life of the party. Everybody really liked him. He had barbecues, everything like that. And as his ambitions, he wanted to climb the political ladder. He wanted to be a man with the power. So what he actually ended up doing is moving the family to Iowa. Now, when they moved there, Marilyn's father actually owned KFCs there, and he put John in charge of all of these KFCs to support the family. Now, they didn't get along, and, is what it is. You'll definitely see in the documentary, he very much wants to show you how powerful he is and how no one can do anything to him. He's invincible. Now, while he was in Iowa, he went ahead and decided to join a group called the Jaycees, which is basically a organization for younger men, to go ahead and come into their own, create businesses, just basically an organization to help men grow up. They would help, in their communities. They would help with charity events. They would just do everything that they possibly could to just make the community a better place, sort of thing. And in 1966, he did join them, and things were great. Like I said, life of the party. Everybody really liked him. Doesn't seem like any kind of bad anything, no shady business at this point. However, after all this time of John being in this organization, he finally was able to climb his way to be president. So he was in the process of running for president. So he needed a campaign manager. So he actually found a member of the organization by the name of Donald Voorhoes Sr. I think that's how you say the last name. And he had been the previous president. And he asked Donald, hey, can you be my campaign manager? And he, chose him specifically because he had a lot of clout within the organization, and he knew that he could go ahead and, further his cause. And Donald, knowing John just not very long, but, knew him pretty well, he thought, decided to help him. He agreed to help him. But later on in autumn of 1967, John was driving around picking up hitchhikers. He picked up a boy, and he didn't know his name at first, but he just picked him up and was telling him, oh, hey, I'll just drive you to wherever it is you need to go. And they seemed fine at first, but then John said on these tapes that somehow they got on to the subject of stag films. Now, I didn't know what stag films were at first, but then he goes into describe that stag films are porn. That's basically what it is. It's porn. And so he was saying that somehow they got onto that subject and they went back to his place. They ended up going back to his place, and he would show Donald these stag films and apparently get themselves all horny. Okay. And John said that they had consensual sex, and after this, he got Donald back into the car and went ahead, drove him home, and left. Notice how I said Donald? I'm not talking about Donald Sr. Oh, no. We're talking about Donald Jr. John had hitchhiked Donald Sr.'s son, had consensual sex with him, and went ahead and just dropped him off. Now, Donald Jr. went ahead and told Donald Sr., his father, what happened, and luckily at this time, John was put away in jail for 10 years. Now, during this time in jail, because he was convicted for sodomy, it was really sad because his wife came into the jail and served him with divorce paperwork. He was shocked at this point, and she said to him that if they couldn't get a divorce and, they couldn't separate from each other, that her father was going to take away the two children. Now, I don't know that would be legal or how he would do that, but I don't know. I guess she was just fearful of losing her children, which woman wouldn't be, that she decided to go ahead and part with her husband. Now, he says when this happened, he wasn't so sad about losing her. He was more sad about losing his children. And he said that at that point, when she came in and served him with divorce papers, was the last time he ever saw his children. Which, you're an awful person, don't get me wrong, but I feel for those children. I really do. I mean, how are they gonna, well, I know they're growing up, but at this time, I mean, how would you grow up without a father, and then when you ask your mom, hey, where's dad? Like, how would the mom have to, describe that? How would the mom, be able to handle that? I can't even. it's horrible when things like this happen, because not only is it the victims, but it's the families that have to go through all of this, and it's just so sad. And in these tapes, when I watched the documentary, there was a forensic science psychiatrist who decided to speak with him and, just kind of figure out what is going on, kind of thing, because he goes on to, talk about further crimes, but this is one of the first type things that are just pivotal. And when they asked him questions about this case, he said to these people, "Oh, this case isn't my fault. If anything, I'm the victim. I'm not the perpetrator. I don't know why I'm here. This is a stupid case." Are you joking me? Like, I swear to God, like, it's just, like, it makes you just so taken aback, like, the minds of these killers, and just, that's honestly why I like looking into these cases, because I like to know what killers think. I want to know how they got from basically birth to their crimes. I want to know, like, in between, what happened to them to make them the way they are today? Or is it just, how they were born, or, nature versus nurture kind of thing? I have to talk about it, because if not, then it just, all that knowledge just, it confuses me, and it just, like, I have to talk about it out loud. Otherwise, it's just like, bleh. It's just nuts, though. How are you going to say that this isn't your fault? And what is shocking to me, his 10-year sentence turned into 18 months. And then he got out, which I am very shocked. I honestly, I would have thought that the father who turned him in would have, raised a little hell and, gone in there and, just said, no, he must stay there or something. I mean, he had political clout, so I would think that he could do something. But, I mean, I don't know. I don't run the law. And now that he's out, in the year 1968, he moves back to Chicago, but he goes to Norwood Park of Chicago just to kind of get away from Illinois, because, it's kind of like a, like a too obvious place. So he goes and lives in Norwood Park, which is still a part of Chicago. And what's interesting is that when he got out, all of his crimes and everything that went on with him that you would think would travel back with him to Chicago, because if you have that kind of record, it would make it very hard for you to go ahead and do anything. Surprisingly, that information was not transferred back to Chicago. So he gets a fresh slate when he goes back to Chicago. And because he's so charming and so nice to everybody and is so in the community, everybody's like thinking he's great, life of the party, just putting on this fake personality kind of thing. He started up a business called PMD, for painting, maintenance, and decoration. Basically got back to his life, and, within the community, he would have all the barbecues, he would do all this stuff, and just get people to trust him. And, each barbecue or, any event that was in the community, he actually dressed up as a clown. He called himself Pogo the Clown. I'm not afraid of clowns, but they just make me uneasy. I don't know. It's just, maybe it's because of this case, looking at a man who is a clown, because he said in these tapes of his that when you are a clown, you can get away with a lot of stuff. He said you could practically get away with murder while you're being a clown. Wow. Okay. So that's pretty much just why he was, a clown, because that's just his personality. He wanted to go ahead and seem like a good guy. So Pogo just kind of was another, happy guy kind of thing. Now, with his business, he did need, obviously, people to go ahead and work for him. And when he would go ahead and hire people, he would hire teenage boys. And people would always ask, why aren't you hiring, experienced contractors? Why aren't you, doing that? It doesn't make sense. And his response would be, oh, they're younger boys. I'm just trying to get them into the workforce and, give them a chance kind of thing. Okay. Weird. Whatever. And that's just what he did. And people, didn't really think too much of it until people started quitting. Until they noticed people went missing. Suspicious. So that's just his life, going on right now. That's just what's going on in his life currently. However, on December 11th, 1978, in Des Plaines, Chicago, there would be a boy who would go missing. His name was Robert Piest. He worked at Nissan Pharmacy drugstore as a stock boy, and everybody just said he was a good kid. He loved his family. He was good with school. He had no problems with girls. There was absolutely no issues at all. And he was just like one of those nice guys who would go ahead and just look after people. One of his coworkers, her name was Kim. I can't remember her last name, I'll be honest. She would be at the front part of the store. And now remember, we're in Chicago in this story. And in Chicago, it's very cold. And she's at the front part of the store where the doors are just opening, so the cold is just getting into the store and she is freezing. And he's just the kind of nice guy who went ahead and just let her borrow his jacket, throughout the shift because he was mostly in the back of the store anyway and didn't really need it because it wasn't cold. So yeah, he's just the kind of sweet, gentlemanly kind of guy, and it's just so sad that he became a victim of John Wayne Gacy. They also developed photos, and I guess back in the day, there used to be this type of thing that you had to fill out, and, they would tear it off and give it back to the customer for their photos just to have it. And, she was just working and, wasn't really thinking about anything. But at one point, she actually went ahead and took one of these slips of envelopes. She says she doesn't really know why she did it or what happened, but she said that she took that piece of paper and put it in his coat. And then later on during the day, Robert had actually come back to Kim and said, hey, can I have my jacket back? I'm going to go ahead and go outside and talk to this guy about a job. So she said, oh, okay. So she took off the jacket, gave it back to him, and they left it at that. And she was just kind of like, oh, okay, I wonder who, he's going to go talk to, but whatever. So from here, I guess he goes outside to talk to somebody, and she says that it just got busy that day, and hour after hour, it was just so busy she didn't even think about it until later on when Robert's mom came to the store to come and pick him up because he was 15 years old and he didn't have a car. That's why he was working. He was trying to save up to get a car, but he wouldn't be able to get one ever. So sad. Now, don't mind my cat. She just likes to go ahead and tell everyone she's here. And it's just, like I said, it's so sad that, he only lived to be 15. Now, when his mother showed up, Kim basically told her the whole story that, hey, he went out to talk to this guy about a job. And, he was probably just thinking, oh, hey, here's just like a side hustle, get some extra money type thing. And, they all went out, Kim as well, and they circled the pharmacy. They looked at every nick and cranny, and he was missing. That's it. Because he would never go anywhere and not tell anybody what was going on. He would, and it was his mother's birthday that night too. So he definitely didn't want to go ahead and miss that. So they decided to go ahead and go to the cops, and they had enough maybe clout or enough drive to go ahead and tell the cops, this is a missing person, put it together and make it happen. Because I don't know what they did, but they made it happen. And because unfortunately, in most cases, a lot of times people or cops would just say, oh, they just ran away, wait, 48 hours for them to come back. And I'm just like, why would you go ahead and tell people that? They could be dead by then. These are very crucial hours. If a person comes up to you and says, oh, hey, my child is missing, you look right away. Stop what you're doing. Find them. That is your job. Do it. That's it. Period. I understand that people are busy, but you need to come up with a task force that handles this specific thing right away. If you need more people, then figure it out. That's my opinion. Whatever. So luckily, the police decided to go ahead and jump in straight away. They went to Nissan Pharmacy. They got a list of everybody who was there that day, including John Wayne Gacy, because he had come in there to go ahead and do some decoration. And they found out that he was there, and they did a background check on him, which people should have done in the first place, but okay. They did the background check on him and found out that he had done time in jail for sodomy. So this instantly put him on the radar. So from here, they wanted to get in contact with John to have him come down to the station for questioning. Now, I can't believe this. They call John, say, hey, we need you to come down to the station. And he says no. Flat out no. And they're like, well, we really need to talk to you. This is about a missing child. And he said, well, I've had a death in the family, so I can't do that right now. And he said, okay, I understand. And I do, sympathize with you. I do apologize that this is what's going on in your life, but we really do need you to come and see us. So maybe a little bit later in the day, or, he's trying to work with him. And he's just like, you have no respect for the dead. This is ridiculous. I don't even know why you would go ahead and ask me this. And, the cop is still just like, you need to come in kind of thing, and it's the law. Like, why are you arguing with the police? And he's like, fine, I'll get there when I get there. And hung up. What a dick. Oh my God, how can you talk to the cops like this? This is just so, whatever. This is just me being afraid of the cops. I am. It just is the way I am. But it's just crazy. And later on, that next day at 3 a.m., mind you, he goes to the station to go ahead and be there for questioning. I'm sorry, there's no one there at the station at 3 a.m. And then he tells the lady, hey, just go ahead and tell the guy that I came here, tonight, just so he knows that I was here. And he was muddy, like his legs and feet were muddy, and, later on they look at his vehicle, and this vehicle is muddy, and it's just kind of like, why is that? When he did finally go back and speak to the investigator actually said, hey, can we search your home? And no, flat out no. And he was just very uncooperative, and they ended up getting a search warrant for his home, and he reluctantly gave them the keys. So they got the keys, they go inside his house, and there are like pictures of clowns and things like that. And he's got a very eclectic kind of, house, and he's got like a bar. I'll show pictures. It's really kind of a weird environment he lives in, but to each his own. And during their search, they actually ended up finding a lot of disturbing things too. Like they found handcuffs, dildos about this long, and, there was a book on, how you hate gays kind of thing, and, just weird shit. And, in his trash can, there was actually an envelope that was from Nissan Pharmacy. So, sir, you might want to take that for evidence, which they did. And in John's house, there's a crawl space under his home, and they go in and look around under the crawl space, but they don't see any bodies. They don't see anything that's, suspicious or anything. So no body, no crime. So they have to let him go because there's, not really anything that you can charge him with specifically, because the toys are concerning and the book itself was just disturbing, but he hadn't specifically killed anybody or have any missing children in his home. He didn't have anything like that going on, so they had to let him go. This, however, did not let him off the hook because the cops still thought that he is a person who had something to do with this. So they actually got 4 investigators who would follow him 24/7 just to kind of see what he did, just try to basically figure out what to do. But John caught on, and he, would be driving with the cops behind him and everything, and he would just drive crazy and erratically and just, go nuts sort of thing. And they wouldn't, arrest him because then that would kind of give them away that, hey, they've been following him. So because he knew and the cops knew that he knew, what the cops did next was they kind of, knock, knock, knock on the door and said, okay, we're going to be following you for this certain amount of time. I just wanted to let you know. And he was just kind of like, yeah, I know. And, he was just kind of like, okay, so everywhere you go, we're going to follow you. Just so you know. And he's like, all right, fine, whatever, just not thrilled, but he's just trying to be cool, gotta be cool. And he would go to breakfast with the cops, and he would go to like bars with the cops, and, everybody would be like, it's John kind of thing. And he's just showing the cops that he's just this great guy kind of thing. And even at one point, though, he could totally switch things, flip his lid, and he would say things like, if I wanted to, I could give a signal to these guys around here and they would shoot you kind of thing. He told that to the cops. What an idiot. What a fucking dick. I swear to God, he is the stupidest man in the world. Then John would be nice again, and he actually would invite the investigators just to come on in to hang out. Do you want to drink? Do you want to watch TV? Do you want to do whatever? He's just trying to be a cool guy, making it easy. So there's 2 investigators. One investigator is with John, and they're talking, and the other investigator actually says, can I use your restroom? And he says, yeah, sure, it's down the hall, whatever. So he goes, restroom, does his thing, and when he goes to flush the toilet, the heater came on. And when the heater came on, there was a smell, because toward the bottom of the wall, there's just this little vent type thing. And he said you could just smell the flesh. He says that he was a cop for many years and he knew that smell. So there's that. There's the envelope. And this issued a second search warrant. During this time, we think that John actually, was understanding that it was coming down for him. Things were happening. He went to his attorney's office, and apparently he spoke to his attorney and stayed the night after just confessing everything. But then in the morning when he came out, he said that he didn't remember saying anything, nothing like that, got in the car and left. And as he was leaving, cops are following him, of course. He actually goes to a gas station, and of all the things, he is thinking in his mind, okay, well, I am getting caught, I'm on the verge of getting caught. That's what he's thinking in his mind. And he has joints in his car. And, at this time, marijuana was still very much illegal. So he went ahead and took out the joints, and he gave them to this teenage kid who, was at the gas station. I think he was probably filling up his, gas tank or something. He was like, here, but the cops saw it, of course. So they finally go ahead and just, put him in jail because, hello, we need to go ahead and get a second search warrant, and let's keep you in jail because you know what? You're now going ahead and, having drug possession. So we need to just figure this out. And he's all up, like talking to the cops too, like, I thought we were friends, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you are an idiot. You're a murderer. Moving on. So now that they had the evidence for the second search warrant, they went ahead and went back into that crawl space. And in that crawl space, there was mud, remember muddy footprints from when he went into the police station a while ago. He had that going on for him. And when they were down there, they were kind of just like, seeing like just areas down there that were just, like still wet kind of thing. So they're just using their tools and they're just kind of digging around. And then all of a sudden a cop hit something that felt like brick. So they pull it out. It's a human bone. And they keep digging and digging, and they find bone after bone after bone, and they find different bodies that are in different stages of decomposition too. So there's some that are very old and there's some that are very new. So it's getting intense, especially given the fact that they're only looking for one boy and they're finding many. The cops kept digging up bodies. Now, one of the investigators went ahead and went into the jail and talked to John and was just kind of like, hi, how you doing? And what's the first thing that John says? John says, did you go into the crawl space? First thing he says, did you go in the crawl space? And he says, yes. And they go ahead and talk to him and they're just like, how many bodies are there, John? What's going on? And he drew them a map of 33 bodies that were in the crawl space and in different areas of his home. There were 33 bodies. Now, as I said, they're looking for Robert Peast. Now, unfortunately, when it came to him, John had said that, this is so stupid, he had no more room for the other bodies, so he actually ended up throwing Robert Peast into the Des Plaines Chicago River. And the cops went out there and they're searching for him, and unfortunately it's Chicago, it's in January, it is frozen, like they had one of the worst storms ever, and it was just impossible to find anything because the water had been frozen over. So it took them until April of 1979 in order to find John's body. Now, from here, because John had already, confessed to each and every single one of the murders and went into gruesome details with his lawyer and just pretty much anybody who would listen, which is so disturbing. It's, oh God, that's so sad. And it's awful too because they were able to identify a lot of the people. However, there were a few people who were like a John Doe sort of thing. And even till this day, they're telling people that if your child went missing, within these years, to contact the cops because it could be one of those missing people, which is just awful. So he was obviously already arrested, but now he had to wait his trial for murder for Robert Peast. So now in the year 1980, he was finally put on trial for these cases. And from here, he was actually interviewed by a forensic psychologist to see if he was, fit enough to stand trial. Maybe he was insane. However, everything that they talked about with him, because he just kept acting like the victim and, he didn't do anything wrong, blah, 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 even though he already confessed to everything else. And, he kept going back and forth, maybe to confuse people, thinking that, he could just confuse them enough to, get his way out of jail or something. He kept trying to think that he was so smart and that he could go ahead and get away with this. But thanks to forensic science, one of the psychiatrists was able to come to the conclusion that all of these murders were premeditated, so he's perfectly fine to stand for trial. So nice try, John. Sorry, you have to go to trial just like everybody else would who committed murder. So sucks to be you. And sadly, during the trial, it did come out just the ways that John would kill these men. I mean, they're 15-year-old children pretty much, but they were young men. What he would do with them is he would act like, like a father or a cool uncle or, just one of those guys who, you thought you could trust. And, he had this trick where he would go ahead and find handcuffs and have the boy put the handcuffs on, and he said that he would show him the trick on how to get out of the handcuffs kind of thing. And he basically did the thing where, oh, put on the handcuffs and everything and I'll show you how to get out. And then the boy would do it and he's like, well, how do I get out? And he said, you need the key. And he would go on to do horrible things to them. He would SA them. He would make these boys commit sexual acts on him because he would have a knife or he would have a gun or he would have just anything and everything just to make these boys do these things in order to, think that they were going to be fine. They kept thinking, okay, I'll be fine, no big deal, but then they would end up dead anyway. And it's just so sad because with the moms too, they found out, there was not only books on how he hated gay people, even though he was committing gay acts, but okay. And he kept saying he wasn't gay, he was just bi, and that he hated gays. I'm like, you are all over the place, sir. But the mothers had to hear just everything he did and how he did it and take that in about how their sons died, and they gave their statements out loud to John in court, and it is literally heartbreaking to go ahead and witness this. I actually started crying a little bit. I am usually pretty, impartial or can kind of be objective about things like this, because it doesn't have anything to do with me. I still think that these stories need to be told because these are people and they have a story, they have a life that needs to be remembered. But in this, I normally am able to be impartial because it's not me. However, I could just see the hurt and hear the hurt and heartbreak with all the moms, and oh God, that was rough. I'll tell you that. It was rough. And it was like he didn't even look at them. He didn't show any remorse. He didn't do anything. He was just there and he was just pretending that he didn't do anything wrong. During his trial, he actually got his mother to come to the trial to go ahead and just let the court know that he shouldn't be blamed for his crimes. He grew up in a very abusive family, and the things that he has, done, it's not his fault because he grew up in that kind of environment. And, she is basically begging for the courts to go ahead and save him, and she's being a sweet little old lady. That's her son, and I get that, but no. That's just, you're taking advantage of your mother. That's just awful. Oh, God. Sick, vile man. However, during this, the prosecution actually was able to show just kind of a mock version of what the crawl space would look like. And he showed the jury picture after picture after picture of each victim. And he showed the crawl space, and he would show the picture, throw it in, show the picture and say their name. Here's this person, throw it in. It's literally like, here's the face, throw it in, here's the face, throw it in. And that was the nail in the coffin, because they decided after 2 hours of deliberating that John Wayne Gacy was guilty. Thank goodness. On March 13th, 1980, he was officially sentenced to death. Now, after this happened, he kept going back and forth with appeals for the next 14 years, and he kept trying to tell people, I didn't do this, what are you talking about? And he's just trying to, charm alarm his way out of there. And people are like, no, shut up. You were trying to talk too much. You did this. There is proof that you did this. There's so much evidence. Are you kidding me? No, shut up. Take your sentence and go. Bye. And then on May 10th, 1994, John Wayne Gacy was killed by lethal injection. And his last words were, "Kiss my ass." What a lovely man. Sorry, man, you deserve it. I'm so sorry. He deserved it. Like, after all of those families and all those boys and just the hurt that he put everybody through, justice was found. That's how I feel. But as I said, even to this day, there is still mentioning of the fact that John had killed people and we don't know who they are. So even decades later, they are encouraging people to go ahead and go to the authorities if they think a person who was missing was related to John Wayne Gacy. Now, that's the story of his horrible crimes and his creepy ass face, and was Pogo the Clown. Get away with murder, huh? Guess that didn't happen for you because you died. Well, at least we got to tell his story because, as I said, I feel it is very important to tell the stories of all murderers, of all serial killers, of everyone, because it's very important to go ahead and still remember the victims and to tell their story and, just to get this out so then that way people in the future can just remember to kind of, keep an eye on your surroundings. I'm not victim blaming at all. I'm not saying that anybody deserved anything, but unfortunately, these days you have to have the buddy system, you have to be very careful. This case is still so famous because all the victims haven't been found. It's not over. And I just want to get the word out so then that way we can help the people of this world. Well, I just want to thank you for watching today's video, and I hope you do like and subscribe. And until next time, stay weird, be safe.